Hello, my name is Eric Hammond. I'm here to talk to you about the future of the Chicago Cubs and the New York Mets and the differences between the two and how they're both pretty bright. You're talking about young teams that have good young pitching and good young hitting. One with the Cubs, this team right here, they have the good young hitting, while the Mets have tons of young pitching that you've already seen with the likes of Matt Harvey. You've seen Zack Wheeler. For the Cubs, you've seen Starlin Castro and Anthony Rizzo, but there's more for each team, especially this past season with the Mets and Jacob deGrom. Now, we can talk about other teams with bright futures, the Houston Astros. You got young guys like Carlos Correa. You've seen what George Springer can do in the slightest sense. You got John Singleton, who's been up for the last season. He struggled. He only hit in the 100s, but he can be good, and he can be a good power hitter. A lot of people see him being able to hit 30-plus home runs. They have a lot of good other young talent like Randy Ruiz, Colin Moran, and then also the Minnesota Twins. You got one of the best prospects in the game, Byron Buxton. Injuries have held him back. Same thing with Miguel Sano, who was supposed to play last year. He had a bunch of guarantees that he didn't live up to because I believe he had to get Tommy John surgery. So the Twins and Astros, also two young teams that have good prospects that can be very good. But the two I want to focus on, the Chicago Cubs and the New York Mets. We'll start with the Chicago Cubs. They have tons of hitting. You start with Starlin Castro and Anthony Rizzo. Rizzo's coming off a career year this season. Talking about a guy that didn't really give much of a shot in San Diego after the Adrian Gonzalez deal with the Red Sox. And the Cubs kind of snagged him up in a small trade, and he's been very good for them. He's a very good left-handed hitting batter, and he can play a solid first base. He was an all-star. And same thing with Starlin Castro, the 24-year-old shortstop that they've had the last few seasons. He's a three-time all-star at this point, and a lot of people could argue that, when the team's bad in the all-stars is that you need to have at least one all-star. Even the worst team in the league gets an all-star. But that aside, Starlin Castro's put up some solid numbers, including this past season. But they made an interesting move, the Cubs did, in the middle of the season, trading for Addison Russell, the shortstop prospect from the Oakland A's. They traded Jeff Samardzija, and you look at this team, you're like, what do they need? They need pitching. You got young guys like Kyle Hendricks, who pitched well this year, Jake Arrieta. Those two pretty much have been the bright spots this past season for the Cubs, but what do they have moving forward? They have C.J. Edwards. But that's basically it for them in the pitching prospect category. Name other hitting prospects. Arizmendi Alcantara came up this year. He's going to most likely be forced to the outfield with all the infield prospects. He played pretty decent. He has some room to improve, but he played decent. Javier Baez. Similar to John Singleton of the Astros, he came up and hit. He didn't hit well for average. He's going to strike out quite a bit, as evidenced by what he did this past season. He had four strikeout games in about a couple months last year than Tony Gwynn had in his whole entire career. But he's a very good power-hitting second baseman. He's been touted having one of the fastest swings in all of baseball, or all of the prospect when he was a prospect, and he has a lot to prove. But he's not going to play shortstop because that's now Starlin Castro, and if Addison Russell comes up, that's going to be Addison Russell's position, shortstop. And in the meeting, we talk about the #1 prospect right now for the Chicago Cubs, and that's Kris Bryant. And Kris Bryant was minor league player of the year. You look at what he did this season. He hit 43 home runs between AA and AAA, having 110 RBIs, even worked 86 walks, struck out 162 times, 15 stolen bases. This kid has a lot of potential. Minor league player of the year. He's really going to be good. He's going to be a great baseball player for this team. You got to add Jorge Soler in there for the Cubs. He came up and played solid for them. That's a lot of good hitting prospects. And they're going after a bunch of. They're going to be going after pitchers. Theo Epstein's going to try to do that. Something that the Mets do have. They have Jacob deGrom. I mentioned him before. He's the Rookie of the Year for the National League. He had a fantastic season. Struck out the most batters to start a game in MLB history this past season. So he's got a bright future. Matt Harvey. He played very well last season, but that Tommy John missed the entire, 2 seasons ago, 2013, missed the entire 2014 due to that Tommy John surgery. He comes back and he's as healthy as, or if he's healthy enough to pitch the way he did that in 2013, and deGrom's pitching the way he pitched in his rookie year this past season, add Zack Wheeler to that mix. You also have Jonathan Niese, your only lefty really, Dylan G. But then you add the fact that you have Rafael Montero, Noah Syndergaard in the minor leagues. Montero pitched pretty well this past season in the major leagues when he got his opportunity. You had those two guys. Where are you going to put all these guys? That's why you could think that these two teams could hook up and make a deal. Mets could use a shortstop. Their hitting is a little bit light. Their prospects, Dilson Herrera, they got a lot of good young guys that came up and played decent, but they could use another bat. Maybe Starlin Castro could be that guy that they maybe trade a Syndergaard for, or maybe Rafael Montero if the Cubs are willing to go that route. So basically, which one of these teams is going to be more successful? You have to lean towards the pitching. But which one team who do I think is going to win more first? Maybe a little biased because I do like the Cubs a little bit more. I do think the Chicago Cubs will end up being World Series champions for the New York Mets, but the pitching does usually pitching usually overpowers the hitting. We'll see what happens in the next couple years with these two teams. But they have a lot of good hitting, a lot of good pitching. We'll see what happens with them down the stretch and if the deal is done between the two, so one can help out the other. But we'll see what. But in the end, they're going to be competitors. Maybe we'll have a couple epic NLCS battles to come. So for Eric Hammond, this has been a preview of what's going to come with the New York Mets and the Chicago Cubs. Thanks for watching.